All right, so what we want to do right now is we want to show you the Nielsen numbers, which just came out earlier this afternoon, right as the show was beginning. This is becoming a trend now, but we could not know for sure if it was going to happen because, if you recall, 2 weeks ago, Nielsen decided that they didn't want to put out their information and they held it privately. We had not seen that occur in years. I don't remember the last time it had ever happened. So we had to pull some strings in order to even put the information out days and days later. But now they're back on track somehow. Not sure what caused them to have that bump in the road. And we're seeing something that I think is very concerning for The Mandalorian. You might not at first think that it is. We'll chat about in just a moment why this is not good for Disney. Before we do, let's do a quick rundown on all of this. So, of course, in the top 3 slots this is the first full week of March, by the way. Top 3 slots, we've got You, Outer Banks, and then The Plane That Disappeared from Netflix. HBO Max continues to do well with The Last of Us. Netflix, then again, with Luther, the Fallen Son. And then we have The Mandalorian. One other thing that I find, well, 2 other things that I find noteworthy in this top 10 overall. You can see that we've got South Park continuing to just be a powerhouse in terms of the culture. You might say, well, why would you not say that about The Mandalorian? And the reason that I say that about South Park and not The Mandalorian is simply because this is a show that's made in 1 week, and they're on like season 26. So the budget that they have for this thing is tiny, and they just continue to place this high in the top 10 over and over every time they have a new season. It's incredible. And then the Chris Rock selective outrage, that for the Will Smith situation is very noteworthy. Now, here is why this is problematic when it comes to The Mandalorian. Everybody put on your thinking hats for a moment and remember back. We all remember that the second episode of The Mandalorian was, in fact, talking about season 3, the best episode by far that they've had. This should have been the episode that if they were going to top the billion at all in terms of billion minutes, okay? When you see the 4 digits, that means they hit a billion. They didn't hit it with the second episode. Now, if we recall, the third episode is really, really bad. And there are more really bad episodes, including the one that we just made it through. We'll talk about it in a minute. Yeah. But the fact that this thing seems like it's going to max out, perhaps it won't, perhaps we'll be wrong, but seems like it's going to max out in that 6th spot for the season, unless there's a huge finale that surprises us. We're even to the point now where this most recent episode is the lowest rated episode, I think, for any Disney Plus Star Wars content ever on Metacritic. So we'll talk about it in a minute. Let's go ahead and take a look at these other subcategories, just see if there's anything worth noting. This is the first time I'm looking at it. Quickly, I noticed that Murdaugh Murders, that it dropped off fast, of course, once that became out of the news. It's gone. The Mandalorian, which was once the biggest streaming show on any streaming platform, now placing 4th in a subcategory. That's another example of things not going well. On Acquired, of course, Bluey continues to be a significant show for Disney, yet Disney doesn't seem to like Bluey. It's the show that they want to censor instead of other things. And then let's see what we've got over here. Under movies, this is going to be interesting. Oh, this is very interesting. Wow. Okay, so this is crazy. 12 months ago, Disney dominated the movie category. They would have like 8 of the spots. And now there's a single Disney Plus movie on there. It's Moana. If you wonder why the live action remake is being remade, by the way, I told you that there was going to be a Moana movie coming out. Been saying it for a year. This is the reason. It doesn't take a genius to figure it out. Moana is it. Encanto is gone. There is no Turning Red. There is no Luca. There is no Soul. And not all of those movies are bad. But families are gone. And the only thing left is Moana. So there are, I believe I counted 3 entities overall from Disney Plus on all of the subcategories, something numbering around 35 to 40 if you start considering things that are shared in the different categories. But out of all of it, Disney Plus now down to like 3 or 4 total in all of the list. It's amazing. Culture, what do you think about this? We're just getting it off the cuff. Any thoughts?
Well, it's a disturbing trend if you're Disney, but it's not surprising. They've under-delivered on a service they had a lot of promises for, which, of course, they were called out in a recent shareholders meeting. But I'm sure we'll talk about that later. When you look at the Mandalorian specifically, it speaks to the quality of the programming that they've been offering with Disney Star Wars across the board. It's been in continual decline, and it seems like Disney is capable of starting some things, sometimes even good things. They're just incapable of continuing to garner interest from an audience over a period of time. The 2-year break didn't help the show at all. And to be fair, it's hard to get in. It's hard to get into a show where you're often taken off on a side quest for something that's not even part of the show to begin with. The most recent episode is nearly unwatchable.
Oh my
God.
So am I surprised by this? No.
Okay. Before we continue on here, we need a call here on this. I think we're clear that we're not spoiling the Mario Brothers movie because we like it. The Mandalorian, I'm not sure that we want to keep that no spoilers thing on here because it's really not good.
Yeah, and mods, will you go ahead, moderators out there in the chat, will you please put that we're going to do a spoiler alert when it comes to The Mandalorian? It's so bad, and we don't normally do this, but it's so bad that I don't think you can spoil it. You know, it's like a ham sandwich from last year. There's nothing that you're going to find out. You know, it's just bad. It's spoiled already.
So should I change my avatar? Am I spoiling it?
Your old ham. Oh, no, you're good. All
right, good. So Jack Black is a clown. All right, cool.
Now, we've got some panelists who we haven't had a chance to chat with too much so far. Chris, have you seen The Mandalorian by any chance? This latest episode.
I have not, but I know that. Well, I'll just say this: we've gone from Christopher Lee to Lizzo, so that's all I'm going to say there.
Ooh!
Oh,
ouch! Well, who has noticed a significant drop off in the quality of The Mandalorian season 3? And if you've noticed that, please tell me what's your best theory for what's going on here. There's a couple of options, right? It could be that Jon Favreau doesn't care anymore. It could be that he's suddenly gone incompetent. It could be that there's some outside force that's causing this to be terrible. But what do you guys think? What's going on?
I find it kind of funny that there was a statement not too long ago from Favreau about how he is under no oppression or impression from Disney and other outside sources right before this episode dropped. And then we see this episode, and it feels like they took a whole bunch of people that have a great legacy in acting and film, not Lizzo, and didn't do anything with it. They just wasted it. I'm not saying the whole episode was bad. There was great points because we talked about the video last time in the recording, but it felt like they're running out of ideas on where to go with this while trying to maintain all types of fans, but they're not giving any direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
It reminds me of Megan. I think it's Megan Thee Stallion joining the She-Hulk thing. It's sort of like again, it's so early to jump the shark, but yeah, they're jumping the shark really early these days. Disney is so.
Can I suggest that this reminds me of the Love Boat with like the celebrity guests each week, or perhaps Fantasy Island? Same thing.
It reminds me of Quantum Leap, where every single episode we're in a new world. I mean, it's totally different.
Yeah. This reminds me of, you guys remember Risa, the Pleasure Planet on Star Trek?
Oh, yes.
This seems like the worst attempt whatsoever to recreate that. I mean, Risa, everyone knew what Risa was. You looked forward to seeing that because they took that, seriously. This was a freaking joke.
Are you saying, Lorena, that this is no longer Risa? It is a dysfunctional Quarks holosuite on DS9 right now?
My goodness. God, I wouldn't even insult the holosuite by saying that it was so bad. I mean, when you start throwing out these guest stars, I love Christopher Lloyd. I love him to death. I really did not mind seeing him. I kind of feel that he was wasted. But when you see them throwing these guest stars in here like this, what it makes me think is, yet again, you do not have faith in the creation that you've built.
Well, they're building something, but it's not it's not worthy of faith. Let's go ahead and read this real quick. This by John Trent, who again will be the guest on the show tomorrow morning for the AM video. You're not going to want to miss it. But out of Bounding into Comics, the Mandalorian episode featuring Lizzo and Jack Black is the worst rated episode of the entire series. Again, I believe, I've not had a chance to check this, but I think at this point on Metacritic, it is now the worst rated content for any Star Wars live action series on Disney Plus. So that would mean that it is beating now the rainbow colored Vespas of the Book of Boba Fett.
Man.
So, all right, here we go. And by the way, folks, we're about to get to something big. Before we do, we've got to hit the 250 likes. So if you've not yet clicked the like button, we're almost there. We're almost at 450 watching. We're going to talk about something that you're not going to believe immediately after this article in terms of Star Wars and in terms of Disney putting themselves in a position that they're going to be in the headlines again. And you're going to hear about it here, probably not anywhere else. Here we go. The latest season of The Mandalorian has not only seen viewers tune out of the show in mass, but viewers who do happen to continue to slog through each episode are giving the series some of its worst ratings yet, with the most recent episode featuring Lizzo and Jack Black currently holding the crown for the worst reviewed episode. The Mandalorian Chapter 22, Guns for Hire, currently has a mediocre 6.8 audience score on IMDb. Not only is this score the worst of the season, it is the worst rating for the entire series. Okay, so they're using IMDb. I've been checking Metacritic. Both of those are, in my opinion, much improved over using Rotten Tomatoes, which I find, other than comparing Rotten Tomatoes scores with Rotten Tomatoes scores, rather worthless. The latest episode unseated Chapter 19, The Convert, that was previously the lowest rated episode with a 7.1 rating. The Season 3 premiere was previously tied with Chapter 5 for the worst rated episode with a 7.5. All right, so here's what I want to talk about. And I'm just going to hand it over to the panel to discuss this. But the thing about it is, this season, it over and over, it just keeps beating itself in terms of the worst episode, right? It's like each new episode somehow outdoes the last one in terms of the lowest score possible. I don't see how Star Wars can continue. I think they've killed it off as an evergreen property. And I think now that it's a joke, it's a parody of itself. But I want to know what your opinions are. Do you think that they have effectively ended Star Wars as a major franchise?
I think they ended Star Wars as a franchise pretty much by The Last Jedi. That's where the division started, and it continued down that road with Rise of Palpatine, and then forth, and then forth. And then you think, hey, they're finally listening with Luke Skywalker at the end of season 2, I believe, and it went right back down the hole again. All of these announcements, all of these promises, and then it turns out that all we have left to play in our poker house of Star Wars is member berries, while still claiming there's no source material then until we need it. They disrespect, and they do not listen to the people that gave this fandom, this franchise, the popularity that it is. Its legacy, the fans, the families, the kids to be, the kids that were, and the kids that still are. They have no retribution in anything outside of themselves and their direction of message.
Well said. Culture, I can see you were just chomping at the bit up there. You look like the statue, the thinker. So what have you?
I feel like I think Steven kind of hit the highlights, to be fair. And it's more than that, though. It's the fact that they were kind of on a roadmap that they had to abandon because they took some actions that were very unpopular with fans. Not the majority of fans, not the vocal fans that you hear about here and there, but the ones that were really invested in where this was going with what Jon Favreau may have envisioned with all the other programs that would have tied into this. And unfortunately, it's shown throughout. I will say that the one thing I'm grateful about the most recent episode is Lizzo was wearing more clothes than I've ever seen her wear. So I'm very grateful to that. But as far...
Bingo.
Yeah. As far as Star Wars goes, overall, it's a dead franchise. I've been saying it for a while. I think Disney overall has actually, imploded to the extent that it's actively pushing away its fans for every one of their franchises, every IP that they control. I think, Lorena, you probably agree, right?
Oh, 100%. I will say I deviate a little bit when I say I don't think for me Star Wars was dead with The Last Jedi. However, once things started going south with The Mandalorian, especially with the Book of Boba Fett, and add on to that Kenobi, now it effectively is dead. Not only do we have abysmal quality going on. I mean, the only thing that I liked about this latest episode of The Mandalorian was like that floating train that Lizzo had on her dress. I did actually like that, but other than that, just, absolutely not. Also, take into case in point how Lucasfilm employees have acted towards fans on social media.
Mm.
Well,
Remember that.
I have a clip that I think expresses exactly how Star Wars fans feel towards Lucasfilm at this point.
3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3. What the heck is bothering me? You!
All right.
That's not wrong.
Can I add a quick thing
Perfect
to that?
callback. Go for it.
Just a quick thing. I do apologize, but we have to also look at this as a grand scale now. It's no longer Star Wars. Disney is the main contributor to the death of 3 franchises. Where you look at Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars, they are on a never-ending path of destruction. They are literally just not magical anymore.
Nick, welcome aboard. It's great to have
having
you.
me.
And could you tell us what in the world is going on with The Mandalorian?
Man, your guess is as good as mine. I have no clue what has happened to this show. I mean, it has completely gone off the rails. This last episode was a complete slap in the face to any Star Wars fan out there. It was a complete joke. I don't even know if Favreau's even taken any of this seriously anymore. Season 1 and 2 were so different than this season. I'm feeling like I'm almost watching another show.
I feel that way, yes.
And there's a reason George did not bring modern day pop stars / celebrities, into his movies, because like Michael Jackson wanted to be in the Phantom Menace and in the prequels and wanted to play the role of the Jar Jar character, and George was like, it's going to take away from that character because he's too famous, he's too popular right now, and having Jack Black and Lizzo in there was just completely out of place. Now I love Jack Black. I mean, freaking School Rock's like one of my favorite movies.
He did great with Bowser. I mean, he's phenomenal playing Bowser in the new Super Mario Bros.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm not a fan of Lizzo, she is a very talented musician. I mean, I got to give her that, but yeah, they were just completely out of place there. And the whole episode was out of place. It was like CSI, Miami, and Star Wars, with all these side quests. They literally give us an 8-episode season, make us wait 2 years before they give us an 8-episode season, which I think is way too not enough episodes.
Well, at least they're using the episodes well, right? They're really maximizing the time they have.
And that's the whole thing. They're not even maximizing the time that they got. They are giving us side quests of side quests. And it's literally like, I have a feeling by the time the season is over, you could edit the main story arc continuing from season 2 with this show, and the whole season lasts less than an hour. That's how much just filler there it seems like is in this episode. And I've been hearing some rumblings about the next 2 episodes that are coming out. And if what I'm hearing is true, I'm not going to say what it is, just in case there's people out there that don't like to be spoiled. But if what I'm hearing is true, people are going to revolt after these next 2 episodes. And it is not going to get any better.
Well, now, wait a minute. Could you give us just some kind of hint in the direction of what you're talking about here?
Dumpster and fire.
Let's just say a possible returning of a OG Star Wars character. That is going to be in very sad fashion.
Jar Jar?
And also
OG,
right?
OG, like OT.
Well, I remember that they have some Han Solo footage. That's the only guess I'm going to make right now. I'll just stop there.
I will say it is not Han Solo.
Okay,
I'm guessing it's C-3PO.
No.
Thank God.
All right. So
and
this
then
reminds
apparently
me.
there's going to be a something else that I've heard is there might possibly be a death, and if you see where this show is going,
Baby
you might
Yoda.
be able
I
to
know
figure
it.
that
It's gonna be
out.
the tiniest little funeral ever.
But we've already seen it where the road is going. You're saying like the show is going to die, right? Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
It's dead. He's gonna die. The Mandalorian himself is gonna die so that Bo-Katan
Yeah.
can take over. Just be-
Coming next
Wouldn't
season,
surprise me the way it's going,
Book
honestly.
of
Yeah.
the Mandalorian.
You know what this reminds me of? This is like a show which, for the first 2 seasons, they were like a Pokemon master, right? They had it all figured out. They were doing great. They just couldn't be beat. They got to catch them all. And somewhere along the way, did you guys ever see the? Did you ever see the little YouTube series about Rusty? Rusty, who was the terrible Pokemon kid who just did everything wrong.
No.
It feels like in season 3 that they've become Rusty. Let's cut to the behind the scenes right now with Jon Favreau and Lucasfilm as they attempt to be the best at Star Wars.
Oh,
Why do you have that many Bidoofs in one ball?
I was out of Pokeballs. We need to get these guys to a Poke Center right away. Why? What would that do? So we can heal them? You can heal Pokemon? Oh, wow, I've just been throwing them away.
You are a dumb monster.
It's what it feels like at the Mandalorian right now. We
Yeah.
need to heal this show badly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's you know, and something else I've been hearing, and Pro, I don't know if you've been hearing the same thing, but apparently with what KK's doing behind the scenes with stuff has really pissed Jon Favreau off. Apparently, he almost left the show completely
Again, or the first time?
No, the first time, and
I know that he was unhappy. That's why I have
Yeah.
wondered if he's just checked out, because
Yeah,
I know he wasn't
that's
even
what
on
it
the
seems
set
like.
for the Book of Boba Fett very much at all. He was phoning in to make some of those changes. At the same time, the buck does stop with Jon Favreau. His name is on it. So,
Yep.
you know, what are you going to do? You don't get to mulligan when your name's in the credits.
I gotta say, Undoomed put out a tweet quoting that last scene with Lizzo and Jack Black and Christopher Lloyd and Baby Yoda, and Din Djarin and Bo-Katan are off in the distance, but he just said it perfectly. He said, well, there it is. Star Wars is officially Spaceballs without the jokes.
yeah, Spaceballs did it better.
Way better.
They did the cringy, goofy stuff better than Disney Star Wars is doing it.
I'd rather have plaid than this. How's that?
Yeah.